Exposed. Spine-chilling chronicles of a cursed monster hunter and the sinister secrets uncovered. Jenna tucked her little boy, Max, into bed, the smell of his freshly washed hair filling her with a fleeting warmth. But just as she pulled the blanket up to his chin, a low whisper slithered through the walls of their tidy Maplewood home. "Help me," it seemed to beg, echoing like a soft reminder of forgotten memories. She shook her head, chalking it up to the house settling, but the chill creeping up her spine told her otherwise. Her heart raced, and she felt a darkness, a sinister secret waiting to be unveiled. The next day, exhaustion clung to Jenna like a heavy cloak after a grueling night shift at the hospital. Yet curiosity gnawed at her relentlessly. What were those whispers? She headed to the local library, scanning dusty newspapers. Each article felt like a nail in the coffin: unsettling deaths, eerie disappearances, haunted homes. Families had vanished without a trace, swallowed whole by Maplewood's veneer of safety. As her fingers touched yellowing clippings, she couldn't shake the notion that even her smiling neighbors concealed something horrific. The cheerful handyman, the neighbor with her dazzling desserts? Their warm greetings now felt like a prelude to a nightmare. As night fell, shadows danced in her living room. Max's laughter echoed innocently, but the whispers turned frantic, clawing at the fabric of her sanity, full of desperation and sorrow. She rushed to the kitchen to distract herself, but the air thickened with dread. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her when she felt a presence just out of sight. With trembling hands, she turned off the lights, plunging the room into darkness. A shape flitted past her vision, quick enough to send her heart into a frenzy. She flicked on the light. Nothing. Just the remnants of fear hanging like the stale scent of tragedy. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Max's giggles filled her ears again, a momentary balm. But those whispers intensified, scratching at the back of Jenna's mind, revealing abandoned secrets, betrayal hidden beneath cheerful smiles. Fear constricted her chest as the memory of the folklore returned. Dark tales of spirits feeding on despair replayed like a horror movie in her mind. The monsters weren't always in the shadows. Sometimes, they lived right next door, cloaked in familiarity. Days crept by, each one thicker with doom. Clenching her fists, she sought out the librarian for answers, anything to break the suffocating cycle of terror. As Jenna pieced together remnants of the past, the tension built. The house was not just a home, it cradled a dark legacy. And just when she was ready to confront these ghosts, the phone rang with a jarring urgency. A chill snaked down her spine at the sound. "It's Max's school." The nurse's voice broke like glass, trembling, telling her Max was gone. Panic surged. Time was slipping away as darkness wrapped around her like a monstrous cloak. Jenna was now not just trapped in her home, but ensnared within a horror that twisted the very familiar into the unfathomable. What lay ahead was not just whispers, but a monster hidden in the heart of Maplewood, and she had to face the terrifying possibility that the biggest threat was standing right in front of her all along. Jenna's hands trembled as she dropped the phone, the plastic sliding across the counter like a ghost fleeing the light. Max was missing? The words crashed over her like waves upon jagged rocks, sharp and relentless. Shouldn't she be at the school by now? Every second felt like an eternity, the air thick with suffocating dread. The whispers rose around her, echoing her despair. "Help me. Find him." She sprinted to the front door, heart racing, but halted at the threshold. The whispers morphed into a cacophony of voices, swirling in her mind, pulling at her very soul, warning her of something lurking outside, something dangerous. "Max," she cried out, hoping he could hear her, wherever he was. But the neighborhood stood silent, too quiet. The cheerful lights in neighboring homes now felt like cruel taunts. Had they known something she didn't? She swallowed hard, a bitter taste lingering in her throat. The frantic beat of her heart echoed in her ears as she stepped outside, each creak of the door sending chills down her spine. The nightly chill seeped through her clothes, wrapping around her like a cold embrace. The streetlights flickered, shadows stretching ominously, and with each footstep, she could feel eyes watching from behind drawn curtains, watching, waiting. Jenna glanced toward the school, a few blocks away. The path there was shadowy, littered with autumn leaves, each crackling beneath her feet like ominous whispers. She hesitated, a sinking feeling anchoring her to the ground. A sudden rush of air whipped past her, and she heard it again, the distant plea, more urgent now, "Help me." Following the sound, she turned down a dim alley between two houses. The urban cacophony faded, replaced by a tense silence. It felt wrong, so wrong. The walls were like a breath away from shattering, and there beyond the wooden fence, a figure knelt, shrouded in darkness. It didn't move, didn't look up, just stared blankly at the ground. "Max," Jenna shouted, her voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. Panic clawed at her throat. She stepped closer, her footfalls unnaturally loud. As she neared, the figure straightened, revealing nothing. Just a tattered coat and deteriorating shoes. No face. Nothing to identify who it was. The whispers grew louder, pressing against her ears, each word like a dagger. "Help, help!" Before she could scream, the figure wheeled around, clutching something small in its hand. Was it a toy? A piece of Max's? Her heart raced with terror and hope, all twisted into one. "What do you want?" Jenna gasped, eyes wide as she backed away. The figure pointed behind her. Fittingly, shadows churned where Max had last played. Darkness clustered like a predator, shifting, writhing. Her instincts screamed at her to run. She whirled, legs pumping frantically as the city around her twisted into a blur. She reached the end of the alley, heart slamming against her ribcage. "Max, where are you?" she called again. The world felt suffocating, the walls creeping in, the houses leaning expectantly. Then silence. The cries of "help me" faded, replaced by the dreadful realization that not only had Max vanished, but she was now lost in the dark web spun by Maplewood's cursed history. Shadows gathered, closing in, feeding off her panic and despair. What could she do? What would the whispers reveal if she dared to listen? Maybe they held the answers. Maybe they wouldn't let her go until she faced the monster lurking in her town. Breathless and wild, Jenna felt the night tighten around her. And in that moment, she understood she had to confront the darkness, not just for herself but for Max, wherever he was. The unanswered questions loomed, the stakes rising. As the wind whispered through the trees, a chilling thought struck her, a truth she might be afraid to face. What if rescuing Max meant becoming something she never intended to be? Jenna turned back, determination igniting in her chest. "I will find you, Max," she vowed, stepping deeper into the shadows as the night exhaled its dark secrets. And behind her, a laughter echoed, a haunting tone, blending with the whispers, promising that the worst was still yet to come. What horrors awaited in the depths of Maplewood? Jenna was about to find out. The oppressive darkness wrapped around Jenna like a shroud as she stepped deeper into the alley, each moment heavy with expectation. Her breath came out in quick, anxious puffs. The laughter from behind had startled her, a cruel sound reverberating off the walls, sending shivers crawling down her spine. "Max," she shouted again, voice barely a whisper in the consuming void. No response came, just the echo of her own fear, ricocheting back at her like a taunt. She felt the shadows pulling, insistent, as if they were alive, pushing back against her. She stumbled forward, the ground uneven beneath her feet, shadows clawing at her ankles. It felt like a trap, a web spun to ensnare her. Suddenly, a sharp rustling sounded from her left, and she whirled, heart leaping into her throat. "Who is there?" Jenna called, her voice steadier than the quaking in her knees. Only silence replied, but she caught the flicker of movement, a shadow slipping past, quick and silent. Then, from the darkness, a child's laugh rang out, innocent yet warped. Jenna's skin prickled. "Max, is that you?" she pleaded, moving further down the alley, the faint light of the street beginning to feel like a distant star. "Help me." The voice was soft, barely a breath, but it sent dread spiraling through her. It sounded so much like her brother. "Help me, Jenna, where are you?" Jenna cried, panic tightening in her throat. "I'm coming." She recalled the stories of Maplewood, tales of children who vanished and never returned, stories whispered in dark corners at school, classrooms stifled by unrelenting fear. Maybe it wasn't just a story. Maybe it was real, lurking, waiting for a chance to ensnare her too. Courage surged in her as she approached a small square of light at the alley's end. Suddenly, the laughter returned, not the innocent giggles she longed for, but a mocking echo that seemed to spiral around her, taunting. Jenna, the voice drifted again, luring her towards the light. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, whispering secrets she had no desire to know. Max, I'm almost there. She could feel desperation clawing at her heart, like an animal in a trap. Just as the light flickered brighter, illuminating the exit of the alley, she felt a tug on her sleeve. Jenna turned, eyes wide in confusion. The tattered coat had reappeared at the edge of light. The faceless figure now seemed to tower over her. It raised its hand slowly, pointing back into the darkness. Don't go, it said, voice a growl, gravelly and low. Some things are better left buried. She gasped, backing away, fear crashing over her. The figure shifted closer, more defined now. She could discern the remnants of its features. Hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, a mouth twisted into something more than human. Max, Jenna shouted again, desperate to drown out the fear. I will find you. The figure leaned closer, and for a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of recognition in its hollow gaze. You can't save him, it whispered, voice dripping with malice. You can't save yourself. With sudden clarity, Jenna rushed toward the light, shoving past the figure. She burst into the night, gasping for breath. The street stretched before her, empty and still, but the laughter lingered, echoing through the trees as shadows crawled like spiders along the pavement. But she couldn't stop now. Not when Max was still out there, lost and in danger. She had to keep moving, keep searching. The school was so close now, just a few blocks, but the night seemed to shift, twisting her path into a maze of uncertainty. As Jenna sprinted toward the glow of headlights on the horizon, dread washed over her. Every step took her closer to understanding the truth. Whatever it was hiding in the dark corners of Maplewood, whatever awaited her there, would she find Max before it was too late? Or would she become just another whisper in the night, another lost soul swallowed by the shadows? Time was running out, and something terrible was closing in. Jenna's heart raced, pounding against her ribs as she pushed onward. The school loomed ahead, its familiar silhouette now distorted by anxiety. It should have felt like safety. Instead, it was a beacon flashing with dread. The streetlights flickered and sputtered, casting eerie pools of light that made the shadows seem alive. Every car passed like a ghost, its engine sounds shrinking into a whimper behind her. What if she didn't find Max? What if he was lost in that darkness, just like so many others before him? The fear clawed at her throat. She reached the school entrance and pushed through the heavy doors that creaked in protest, an unsettling sound that echoed off the tiled hallways. The silence inside was almost deafening. Why were there no footsteps? No murmurs of late-night staff? Max, she shouted, voice cracking. The sound bounced back at her, empty. She hesitated, the weight of dread settling heavily on her shoulders. She had to find a classroom, somewhere he might be hiding. She glanced down the corridor, each door closed tight. Behind one, she thought she heard a faint sound, a whisper, almost like her brother's voice calling but muffled. Jenna's legs moved before she could think. Max. She pressed on, sliding open a door marked Science Lab. The room was still, papers scattered across disheveled desks. A lab table stood in the center, covered in all manner of oddities, dissected frogs long forgotten, overturned beakers, a single flickering fluorescent light overhead. Nothing was here except for that whisper. It was real this time, echoing through the air like a soft breeze. She turned, creeping toward the back of the lab where the source seemed to come from. Jenna, the voice was faint, pleading, and filled with a sense of urgency. Her pulse quickened. Max, she gasped, looking frantically around. The air grew colder, the temperature dropping like a stone in her gut. A sudden draft whipped around her, scattering the scattered papers. Help me, the voice again, clearer now, and more desperate. Her eyes darted to the supply closet. Was he trapped inside? Jenna rushed over, hands trembling as she grasped the handle and pulled it wide open. Darkness swallowed her face as she leaned in, scanning the cramped space. Where are you? She whispered to Guy in the shadows, She saw a dim outline, a small figure hunched in the corner. Her breath caught in her throat, tight like a noose as she reached out. Max, is that you? Get away. The figure shrieked suddenly, shifting, revealing a face twisted with terror. It wasn't Max. It was a girl, hair matted and eyes wide with panic and something deeper fear of the darkness that surrounded them both. Help! The girl begged, but Jenna froze, realizing she didn't hear her brother's voice now. Only this girl's frantic cries. Who are you? Jenna pressed, desperately searching for signs of Max. The girl flinched back, as if Jenna herself were a shadow, a figure to flee from. Open the door. You have to run, she screamed, her voice growing shrill as something dark shifted in the corner of the closet behind her. Jenna's heart raced. She felt it before she saw it. The shadows were moving, coiling together, taking form. That low growl from earlier echoed in her mind, and the memory of the tattered coat came rushing back. The figure from the alley was here too, waiting, hungry. Don't let it take you, the girl wailed, eyes wide with terror, the shadows wrapping around her. Jenna stepped back, but it was too late. The darkness surged forward, reaching for her, clawing with an insatiable hunger. All the stories flooded back, the legends of Maplewood, the lost children, the whispers that warned of that which should not be disturbed. Run! The girl shrieked one last time, but inside Jenna's heart, something snapped. She would not be another lost soul. Clenching her fists, she surged into the flood of darkness, determined to break through, to confront whatever lurked there. The shadows recoiled, a feral growl bubbling up from the depths, and then, just as suddenly, silence engulfed the room. Inky blackness closed in around her, swallowing her voice, her breath, her very existence. What lay beyond was unknown, but only one truth screamed within her. She had to find Max. The darkness tightened its grip. A chilling thought crossed her mind. What if he was not the only one lost? Fear twisted in her gut as the shadows danced menacingly, whispering secrets she was too frightened to hear. Jenna felt the cold surround her like a shroud. The darkness pressed against her skin, each pulse a reminder of its need to consume. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to find the courage to explore the unknown. The iron taste of fear clung to her, thick and suffocating. Breathless, she fought the instinct to flee, focusing her thoughts on Max. She could not let the shadow swallow him, too. Her heart drummed in her ears, drowning out all but the whispers that threatened to draw her into madness. Max, she whispered, her voice trembling. Where are you? A flicker of movement in the murky gloom caught her attention. She turned slowly, as if the act of movement might provoke the lurking darkness. There, against the back wall, a faint glow pulsed. Jenna stepped toward it, drawn like a moth to a flame, her instincts screaming to turn away. As she approached, shadows twisted around her, snarling like angry beasts. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of pleading voices. Help us! Save us! With each step, Jenna fought against the tide of despair. What happened to you? The words slipped out before she could stop them, her curiosity overriding her caution. The glow brightened, revealing fractured images trapped within. Faces emerged, distorted and shrouded in agony, children, just like Max. Their mouths opened in silent screams, eyes wide with terror, begging for release. Max, she cried, desperation clawing at her chest. A hand reached out from the darkness, fingers grasping for her, a motherly instinct coursing through Jenna. Don't let it take you, Jenna. The girl from the supply closet echoed in her mind, her warning reverberating like the tolling of a bell. Something slithered past her ankle, icy tendrils of shadow coiling around her legs. Panic surged as she tried to pull free, but it was too strong. No, she shouted, fighting against its hold. The glow dimmed, flickering like a faulty light, teasing her with hope. Then she heard it, his voice faint but unmistakable. Jenna, the sound threaded through the chaos, reaching her like a lifeline. Max, where are you? Down here. His whisper radiated from the floor beneath her. You have to hurry. Instinct took over. Jenna dropped to her knees, ripping her hands through the shadows that coiled around her. They shrieked, angry and feral, biting at her wrists. Let me go? Let me help him. She yelled, defiance burning bright like wildfire. The darkness erupted, a tumultuous wave surging forward, but Jenna fought. Her fingers found a crack in the floor, rough and warm, pulsating like a heartbeat. Pulling harder, she felt the shadows retreat for just a moment, as if they sensed her determination. Jenna Max's voice was clearer, imprinted with a sense of urgency that sent a shiver racing down her spine. "You're almost there. Please, you have to find the passage." The air shifted, and a low growl rose from below her, reverberating like thunder. The shadows coiled tighter, claws of despair gripping her tighter, trying to plunge her deeper into their maw. She could feel their hunger, a desperate need to consume every bit of light. "Please," Jenna screamed, the rawness of her voice shattering the oppressive silence. "I want to let you take me." With one last surge of strength, she pulled harder, and a sliver of reality pierced the veil of shadows. The pulsing glow expanded, revealing a narrow opening spilling pale light. Jenna gasped, hope igniting within her. There was a way. "Max," she shouted as she felt herself being pulled into the crack. "I'm coming." As she slipped through, the darkness howled, and one last terrifying thought pierced her mind. What if this passage led her straight to the monster? Dread coiled inside her like a snake, but she stepped forward. There was no turning back now. Emerging into the light, a frail figure stood at the end of the hallway, the very same tattered coat hanging loosely from trembling shoulders. "Welcome back, Jenna," it hissed, as shadows curled and shrunk around its feet. Her skin prickled, hands shaking. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows where Max is." The world spun around her. Outside, a storm gathered, and the lurking quiet whispered everywhere. But where was Max? What did this figure know? Suddenly, the shadows closed in again, and she realized she might not be the hero in this story at all. Jenna felt cold ice settling deep in her gut as fear gripped her tightly. What if she was walking straight into a trap? The figure took a step forward, its face obscured by the shadows swirling around it. Every instinct in Jenna screamed to run, but her body was frozen in place. She swallowed hard, trying to suppress the rising tide of dread that coiled in her throat like a serpent. "Do you want to find him?" The figure crooned, voice like velvet wrapping around barbed wire. "Or would you rather turn back?" Panic coursed through her veins, and she shook her head. "No. Where's Max?" The figure's eyes glinted in the dim light, a promise of something twisted lurking beneath the surface. "You only need to ask the right questions, dear Jenna." She felt a knot tighten in her chest. "What do you mean?" "His fate is tied to this darkness," it said, gesturing to the writhing shadows that threatened to re-engulf her. "If you wish to save him, you must confront the truth." The chill in the air froze time around her. Beneath the figure's cloak, she thought she saw a glimpse of something, a flash of movement. Perhaps a face. No, it was just an illusion crafted by the shadows. Her heart raced. "What truth?" "Everything you believe about him, about this place, is wrong," it hissed, leaning closer. The shadows lunged, swirling around Jenna, swirling through her hair like icy tendrils. "Stop!" she yelled, stepping back, but the figure advanced, relentless. "What have you done to him?" A cruel smile formed on its lips, stretching impossibly wide. "He has only gone as far as you allow him. You tread this path, but your heart has shown me the weakness." Jenna recoiled, breath catching in her throat. "I'm not weak." "Are you sure?" The figure's voice dripped with malice. "Do you really believe you can save him if you don't face your own fears?" The shadows thickened, an ominous murmur echoing her thoughts, filling her with doubt. It was true. She felt her resolve waver. Terrible images of a future without Max flashed in her mind, a world that would swallow her whole, leaving nothing behind. "You'll lose yourself," the figure taunted, recognizing her defeat. "Join us instead. Embrace your fears." "No," Jenna shouted, shaking her head violently. "I refuse." With every ounce of strength, she focused on the warmth inside her, the love she held for Max, and launched herself at the figure. The shadows recoiled with a howl that scraped at her soul, just as they seemed to surge up her legs, gnashing and biting. Energized by her will, she pressed closer. "Tell me where he is." The figure swayed, its form shifting like smoke in the wind. "Embrace the darkness," it urged, but Jenna's fervor burned too bright. Suddenly, a doorway materialized behind it, a glimmering exit adorned with soft golden light. It beckoned to her, offering a glimpse of safety, but something sinister beyond. "Don't be fooled." The figure's voice rose above the roar of the shadows. That light is a lie. You'll find only desolation. Jenna hesitated, heart pounding. What if it was right? What waited behind that door? Or was it simply the path to Max? The shadows lunged forward, grasping for her, almost tasting her terror. Frantically, she moved toward the glowing doorway, feeling the power surge against her. With one last glance back, she felt the figure smile, its eyes devouring her doubt. You'll come back to me. Stepping through the threshold, a rush of air enveloped, but the whispers of the shadows clawed at her mind, leaving a cacophony of questions in their wake. As she fell into the light, she realized this wasn't over. Max could still be out there, trapped in a nightmare of his own. What awaited her on the other side? With a trembling heart, Jenna breathed out her next thought, a thought that gnawed at the pit of her stomach and filled her with dread. What if she just walked into a greater danger? Jenna stumbled into the light, her heart pounding like a war drum. The brightness momentarily blinded her, a stark contrast to the oppressive shadow that had enveloped her moments before. She blinked, squinting to make sense of her surroundings. The air felt different, cleaner, yet heavy with an unshakable tension. As her vision cleared, she found herself in what appeared to be a deserted town square. The buildings loomed over her, cracked and peeling, their windows darkened like hollowed eyes staring down. An eerie silence wrapped around the space, broken only by the faint rustle of leaves and the distant echo of a heartbeat. Hers. Max, she called, her voice barely breaking the quiet. Each syllable hung in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Nobody answered. The light around her flickered, sending shadows darting between the cracked pavement and the skeletal remains of the town. For a moment, she was lost in thought, remembering the twisted warnings of the cloaked figure. What truth? The question echoed in her mind, clawing at her sanity. Jenna took a hesitant step forward, and her foot landed on something soft. Looking down, she gasped. A small, forgotten toy lay there, its colors faded, one eye missing. A child's toy. Panic surged through her. Was this Max's? A chill trickled down her spine. No, she whispered, shaking her head. This can't be happening. But it was. A nearby building creaked as if it were alive, shifting and groaning under the weight of despair. She took cautious steps toward it, pushed by a maddening mix of fear and determination. The door swung open without her touch, and she peered inside. The interior glowed with a ghastly light, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. Shadows flitted across the walls, creating faces that melted away when she looked directly at them. It felt like she had stepped into someone's nightmare. Max. She called again, her voice trembling. Then, a sound faint, muffled drifted from deeper within the building. The sound of a child crying. Her heart sank. She rushed toward it, desperate to find him, desperate to hold him again. As she entered the next room, she was met with a horrifying sight. The walls were smeared with something dark, shapes writhing just beyond her vision, forming grotesque figures that watched with hungry eyes. Jenna felt bile rise in her throat as the shadows began to coalesce into something more substantial. Join us! A chorus of whispers rose around her, seductive yet sinister. Embrace your fears now, she screamed, stepping back, but the floorboards creaked in protest beneath her heel. The shadows pressed in, their whispers rising to a cacophony, echoing doubts and fears. You'll never find him, you'll become one of us. Jenna shook her head, forcing her way through the choking dread. She needed to focus. There had to be a way to find Max. Steeling herself, she took another step forward, determined to confront whatever horror lay ahead. Max, she shouted, her voice cracking as helplessness settled over her like a shroud. As if in response, the cries intensified, morphing into wails filled with pain. It was not just fear she felt now. It was an insatiable curiosity. Would she dare uncover the truth behind the shadows? In that moment, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow slipping away, darting into the darkness of an adjacent hallway. Jenna hesitated, heart racing. Should she follow? Or retreat into the light she had just escaped? Suddenly, the shadows around her thickened, rising like a wave ready to crash down. Choose, they shrieked, growing louder, drowning out her own thoughts. With resolve, Jenna took a step toward the darkness, whispering a silent plea. Please, let this be the path to you, Max. But as she ventured deeper, a gnawing doubt clutched at her heart. In search of him, Had she just signed her own death warrant? As she plunged further into the inky blackness, the shadows laughed, and the air grew colder still. What terror awaited her in the heart of a lingering nightmare? The hallway stretched before Jenna like the gaping maw of a beast, dark and unforgiving. Shadows clung to the walls, warping and twisting as the light flickered behind her. She could feel them pressing closer, cold tendrils brushing against her skin, each whisper tinged with malice. "Join us," they beckoned again, a serpent's hiss curling around her resolve. "Max," she shouted again, her voice a thin thread in the enveloping void. Fear wound tightly around her chest, each beat of her heart a reminder of what was at stake. If she lost him as she moved deeper into the darkness, the air thickened, a rancid mixture of rot and despair. Each step echoed like a confession, reverberating off distant walls that felt both close and impossibly far. A desperate pulse of hope flared within her. "I'm coming for you." Then she heard it again, his small, broken sobs, a sound so raw it clawed at her insides. Follow the sound, she thought, fighting the instinct to turn and flee. Jenna pressed on, the cries guiding her, a lifeline in the abyss. Dread washed over her as she reached a door at the end of the hallway. It stood ajar, swinging gently, as if a breath of something sinister flowed from within. She pushed it gently, the hinges creaking in protest, the sound eerily amplified in the silence. The room was bathed in a pale, ghostly light, and her stomach turned at the sight that awaited her. The walls were lined with dozens of faded photographs, each one revealing a different child smiling, then fading into the anguished expressions of confusion and terror. Their eyes seemed to follow her, a disembodied audience to her intrusion. She felt the shadows shift behind her, creeping along the floor, grasping at her ankles like desperate hands. "Max," she cried, her voice cracking yet again, fear making her weak. But the cries had stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating and heavy. And then, she saw it, a small figure hunched on the floor in the corner. As Jenna stepped closer, the shadows pooled around her feet, dancing with anticipation. Could it be? The figure twisted slowly, revealing a child's face smeared with tears and grime. Max relief flooded through Jenna, only to be quickly dashed as the shadows shifted with a growl, their whispers igniting into a frenzied scream. "You shouldn't have come here, Max," she screamed, reaching out for him, but he recoiled, his eyes wide with fear. "No, stay back." His voice was raw, cracking under the weight of panic. "They'll take you too." "What do you mean?" "I'm here to save you," she pleaded, desperation spilling out of her. The shadows surged towards her, and from their depths, a figure began to materialize, a grotesque parody of a child with eyes that glinted like shards of glass, a mouth twisted into a mocking grin. "Join us," it crooned, the voice layered with those of countless other children, a chilling harmony that sent shivers down her spine. Jenna's heart raced as she glanced toward Max, who was pressing himself closer to the wall, terror-stricken. She couldn't let them take him. Kneeling, Jenna reached out her hand to her son. "I want to leave you. Just take my hand." But as she moved closer, the shadows writhed aggressively, forming a barrier between them, pushing her back. The temperature dropped, freezing her breath into tiny clouds as the laughter rose around her, mocking, threatening. "Make your choice, embrace the darkness," it taunted, enticing her with promises of safety, of freedom from fear. Tears stung at the corners of her eyes as she glanced back at her son. Time was running out. If she gave in, what would become of Max? Did she dare plunge into the nightmare to save him before it was too late? In that moment of chaos, another flicker of movement darted through the shadows. A figure wrenching, familiar chased after the child on the other side of the room, and Jenna's heart dropped. Was there more to this horror than she'd ever known? "Max, come with me," she yelled again, her voice trembling, a beacon in the encroaching dark. But even as her words echoed, doubt began to seep into her mind. What if the truth was deeper than she imagined? What if embracing the darkness was the only way to save him? Suddenly, everything went still. The muffled cries faded, replaced by an unsettling silence. Jenna stood frozen, staring into the abyss, heart hammering in her chest. What choice would she make when faced with the ultimate revelation of her own fears? Would she push through the nightmare or shatter under its weight? As the shadows loomed closer, Jenna had only one thought. She needed to know. The air shifted, thickening like a fog of despair, pressing against Jenna as if the darkness itself conspired to swallow her whole. She felt a chill race down her spine, a primal instinct warning her of an encroaching evil. The silence stretched taut, like a wire ready to snap. "Max," she whispered, her heart in her throat, clenching with each breath. Every moment felt like an eternity as the shadows writhed, swirling closer, the shadows seeming to pulse with a life of their own. Suddenly, the form of the laughing, twisted child within the darkness lunged forward, face illuminated by an unseen light. "Join us, Jenna," it cried with a voice like jagged glass. Its smile widened, revealing sharp teeth that glinted like daggers. "You're just like us now." "I'm not," she yelled back, defiance surging through her just as fiercely as her fear. She fought against the shadows pushing against her, each inch a battle against the weight of despair. Max's cries bounced around the room, echoing with heartbreaking agony. "Mom, please." Shaking off the grasping shadows, Jenna lunged forward, her fingers brushing against an icy texture. It felt like a barrier, something that bound them apart. Panic ignited within her chest like wildfire. Could she break through? "Max!" She cried out again, but the shadows laughed children's laughter, each giggle hollow and echoing against her will. The obscured forms danced around her, taunting her further. "Your love is nothing here," one shadowed figure chanted. "Join us, let us in." Fighting against the encroaching tide, Jenna grasped the darkness itself, ripping it apart with sheer will. She pressed against the icy barrier, sweat beading on her forehead as she felt a flicker of warmth escape from the walls of despair. "I will not betray my son," she screamed, the power of her love and determination blazing within her. The shadows hissed, retreating slightly in a serpentine coil, their whispers momentarily losing their malevolence. "Then you shall be cast away," they shrieked as they surged forward once more, launching toward her and Max with a ferocity that took her breath away. Just when all hope seemed lost, she felt a small, warm hand latch onto hers. Max. He had broken free of his fear, reaching through the shadows. Caught off guard, the malevolent forms recoiled. "Mom," he gasped, his face lit by some horrific light, fear and courage mingling in his eyes. "We can fight," Jenna shouted, hope threading through despair. "We can face this together." They stood as one, defiance uniting their souls against the darkness, their bond more potent than the shadows. For a moment, clarity flashed through the confusion. They were not alone. Maybe together they could push back. But as they turned to confront the looming darkness, another shadowy figure drifted towards them, this one larger and more menacing than the rest. Its face was a mask of sorrow and rage, an echo of countless tragedies. "You think you can escape? You belong to us." Jenna's heart thudded loudly against her ribs. This wasn't just about Max anymore. It was about her, too. "We won't let you take us." She determined. A flicker of something deep within her surged. It was anger and fear tangled up together, a visceral refusal to be swept away. She steeled herself, ready to face whatever horror lay ahead, but a question burned in her mind that she couldn't ignore. "What are you?" She screamed into the darkness, searching for answers even as the shadows pressed in around them. The figure paused, and in the charged silence, words unfurled like a confounding darkness. "We are the forgotten, the lost. We are what you fear most." Jenna's resolve began to waver as a piercing chill enveloped them. What did she truly fear? The shadows moved closer, swarming around Max and her like a thunderous storm. Clarity turned to confusion all over again. Would she uncover the truth of the darkness before it consumed them? As they stood together at the edge of despair, Jenna felt the darkness closing in. What horrors would they have to face to escape? The whispers tangled in her mind like a snare. And, just before the shadows swallowed them whole, a piercing scream broke through the cacophony, a cry that resonated deep within her soul, leaving her to wonder whose voice it truly was. Jenna's vision swayed as the shadows enveloped her and Max, the chilling air thickening between them. "We are the forgotten," the darkness whispered, "the lost, your worst fears." She felt Max's hand tighten around hers, a small anchor of warmth amid the encroaching cold. The faces of countless children flickered in the gloom, their eyes hollow and pleading. "No." Jenna shouted, her voice breaking through the murmur of despair. I want to let you take us. The dark figure loomed larger, its form shifting grotesquely. You wish to challenge your fears. You will join your son in darkness. It surged forward, ready to engulf them, but Jenna stood firm, the resolve burning in her chest. We are not afraid of you, she screamed, her voice piercing the veil of shadow. Max shivered beside her, but determination glinted in his eyes. Mom, we can do this. Together, their fear turned to rage, pressing back against the oppressive darkness. Jenna remembered the librarian's words, the local folklore of those who had vanished. There was power in the light, power in love, and they shared a bond that could not be severed. Jenna squeezed Max's hand, and a bright light began to emanate from their joined grasp. Our love is stronger than your darkness, she cried, lifting their hands higher. With a resounding roar, a burst of light flooded the space, illuminating every corner of the shadowy realm. The figures screeched and recoiled, unraveling like smoke in front of a flame. Each heartbeat sent pulses of warmth surging through her. With every second, their bond shone brighter. Fear, despair, and pain, once entwined with their very being, began to dissolve in waves of golden light. The children's faces transformed, moving from agony to relief as the luminous energy spread, bathing everything in warmth. You can't have us, Jenna shouted, the shadows thinning around them. The monster, caught in the shimmer of brightness, shrieked with fury, its shape writhing. You think this is over? You will always return to us. Jenna grit her teeth. No, this ends now. She stepped forward, yanking Max with her. The shadows hissed, but they refused to let go of each other. Every step toward the figure weakened its hold until finally, with one last push, the shadows distorted and collapsed like a burst balloon, their cries fading into the light. As the darkness faded, Jenna blinked, her heart racing. The world materialized around her, familiar and warm, the sounds of Maplewood filtering back as if waking from a long nightmare. Max, she shouted, cradling him tight. Are you okay? You're safe. I thought I lost you. He whimpered, tears streaming down his cheeks, but she cupped his face, kissing away his fear like precious ink on parchment. The storm had passed, leaving a clear sky overhead. Maplewood stood still, bathed in the morning light, the streets vibrant and alive, as if awakening from a slumber. I thought they'd get us, Max whispered, still trembling. Jenna brushed his hair back, her heart aching for all the children lost to the shadows. But she knew they had forged a light strong enough to push back the darkness. With courage swelling in her chest, Jenna held Max's hand as they walked through the town, passing familiar faces. Watching the cheer in their eyes felt both strange and comforting. It was a reminder that light could exist even in the inertia of horror. Jenna breathed deeply, the smell of fresh grass filling her lungs. We're safe now, she reassured Max, and we're going to help everyone remember their light. She glanced back toward the alley where the darkness had swallowed her whole, determined never to forget the battle they fought. She would return to the library, speak to the townsfolk, shine a light on the stories that needed to be told. This wasn't just her story anymore. It was a story for all of Maplewood. As they strolled into the heart of their town, side by side, Jenna felt the warmth of love envelop her. They were home, together, more powerful than the shadows would ever realize. And somewhere deep within her mind, she vowed never to forget the truth light could shatter the darkest fears. Thank you for being with us on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, you need to subscribe now to make sure you never miss another tale like this. Smash that like button now to help us gain momentum. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who would love to see this conclusion. Your support makes everything possible.